Welcome back, everybody. Thank you again for joining me here in my wife and I's forever vintage story world. We're centered on the estate again. You can see the backdrop in the background. Today's focus is going to be on our textile shop workstation storage area thing. It was initially combined with our leatherworking studio into one building, which has now been refurbished into a bar. We have a video talking about that if you guys want to scroll back a little bit and take a gander at it. Just a little bit of context there. This new building was built by my wife and I, and we wanted it. We built two new buildings to split the leather working and the textile working up, and we kind of shoved paper into the textile working area as well, since they all use the fibers. But this building is going to be kind of just showcasing, I guess, a more hardline example of the production chain logic that I have behind my builds. Several of you have asked about like conceptualizing and like how do you make something feel used, and like how do you clutter and decorating and filling a space and all these other questions. And I think the textile shop and the leatherworking station really are good examples of like the root of my thinking. And so hopefully this rambling, I'll be able to explain it to you in a way that you guys will be able to take something from it and utilize it in your own way with your own fashion, your own styles. And then hopefully you'll be kind enough to share those things with me, because as I've stated before, I like to imagine this is a very positive feedback loop for all of us fellow creatives and builders and vintage story players. So if you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you again for joining me. I do ramble, so if there's too much going on and you're not learning enough and you want to skip around, go right ahead. I'm going to try to have chapters and stuff for this one like the last one to make that more navigable for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and flip us around here. That's not where I was looking. Bam, there we go. The textile shop. I use the word shop in the way that I would describe it, a workshop. The shop is just a place where the work is done. So I guess you could look at this as kind of like a storefront. You could come up here and like interact and purchase from us if you wished. But this is an estate and not a town. So this is just where the people that live at this estate facilitate this work. So like I'm going to have the building on screen here and kind of fly around a little bit. I do want to speak, I guess, contextually and conceptually. This game does not have a lot of crafting stations like Minecraft has a crafting table or a furnace or a cartography table. But it does want to go even further than what Minecraft did and break out of the crafting box, the crafting grid menu, and have stations, kind of like Minecraft. But it wants to go further than that by having the crafting steps broken up into multiple processes. This is most visible with like the knapping and the clay forming and the smithing. Like you can quite clearly see, like that's not just like, oh, I arrange pieces of iron in this certain shape and that gives me this tool head that I have to then put together. Or even as simple as Minecraft, where you put the stick and the pieces of metal in the box together and that creates the whole tool. So the idea that you could make a handle and then make the head and put that together and all that process, that still takes place in the crafting grid where you put the crafted head on the handle. But you can see with their roadmap and the updates they're doing that they're slowly but surely getting things out of the menu and into the actual tangible game world. And you see a lot of this energy is actually desired by the community, by us, because there's mods that are already trying and even succeeding very well at covering these gaps. And so hopefully we'll see a lot of these things that we see in the mods incorporated into vanilla gameplay. And so this building, this textile shop, is kind of a showcase of what I'm doing since I don't have mods. So we'll go ahead and fly around the outside, which again I've been kind of peeking at. Over here is the barrels that technically belong to the leather working station, but because you would be, getting your flax wet and washing it and cleaning and all this other stuff, these barrels are kind of tied up against this building as well, just to kind of make this look like a shared space. In reality, these barrels are only used mechanically in the game for making tannin and the lime water and the actual tannery stuff. But it's next to both of them because, these both would technically need barrels and wash bins and things like that for cleaning purposes. Over here on this front is a rope making corner. I really don't know what it'd be called, but this is just where they're taking the fibers and spinning them together and then wrapping them around themselves, and eventually it's kind of like braiding hair. Like you just keep getting bigger and bigger strands until you go from fibers to strings to I guess to rope. And then I'm not sure what's bigger than a rope, a big ass rope. You know what I mean? Like they just get bigger and bigger. The more ropes you end up wrapping around each other, the bigger your rope gets. And so these are just stations where you can hang the ropes up, you could coil them, running between two posts. I have some rat lines thrown down. I've also used fanned cobblestone and chiseled laid out ropes, which the snow was kind of fucking with the visuals of it. But there's also like just piles of either fibers or coils of rope that are custom. And then the wall itself is kind of boring because this is kind of a workstation, but I didn't want it to be dead. So you have that on the wall to have those ropes hanging. You have these posts in front of the wall, and then the windows with the shutters and classic lattice. I wish there was some way, maybe I could take the creative moss block or something and put on the lattice to make it look like there's vines growing on it. But the only real way to accomplish that look, which I haven't done here that I can think of, is to use creative to grab the leaf blocks and then also make use of the vines and kind of just remove the lattice pieces, like replace the one in the middle with a leaf block and then have a vine underneath this one and then maybe put some leaves up on the roof. You can kind of see how I did that with the apiary build if you want to go back a few videos. I just have not done this over here because I didn't want it to be too overgrown, especially right here where people are going to be working. They would probably maintain this. So I really don't know what the point of the lattice is there, really, other than to give your eyes something more interesting to look at beyond a flat wall, if that makes sense. And then the hand trunk I was mentioning in the cart or whatever that I mentioned in the library build over here, clearly we have creative sacks or folds of linen down in there. And then I actually used, I think this is nickel plating. I don't really have a use for nickel, so I guess you can make Cooper nickel later, but I'm really not into the night vision mask stuff and all that nonsense. It really doesn't seem worth it to me, really, for what I do. So we just used the plating and made it look like, maybe it's a stack of paper, maybe it's a stack of cloth or something, you know. But then, actually next to the rope area, I forgot, these two crates, they're not labeled properly, but the parchment is on the front of it for the labeling. This is where your cattails and vines and stuff would, well, the cattails would be stored because we don't really fuck with the vines for rope, but you store your cattails for rope, and then the rope actually goes in the other chest there, kind of color coded. Ebony for the cattails because the cattails are brown on top, and then birch for the other crate because ropes are a lighter color. So I really like the porch. I do wish this was less flat. I should have put some beams across it. I just didn't. But you have these posts on the corner with the 45-degree angle beams, and then you have the beam going across right here for a porch railing, although because it's a beam, it's not a solid object. I think I did something to make it, oh no, it's not a beam, I'm sorry, I'm a damn liar, this actually is not a beam, I tricked myself is what I did. I'm pretty sure this is a debarked log that I chiseled into this to go all the way across, and so it's chiseled into this quarter log the same way this stone is. That way you can't run off the edge. Yeah, this is a solid fucking block. It just looks like a beam. I tricked myself. Because, like, that's a beam. And then there's a beam. I have a 45-degree angle on the beam on the underside here. You can kind of see where some of the shingles are looking through. And this is a lot more curved up here on the back roof than the actual bit here. And I feel like maybe I need to change that. Maybe I need to make the beam more curved, or just go ahead and give up trying to have this curved and just make it a straight 45. The whole point of that was just to make this a little bit more interesting because you got the porch here. I just didn't want it to be exposed on the porch, so you put a roof on it. And then also it makes the gable a little bit more interesting as well. The back side is kind of trash, not going to lie, because again, I don't formally plan anything. I just kind of make pieces fit where they need to. So the building is kind of like an L shape because you have the main rectangle with the gables, and then you have this little side piece coming off with a 26-degree slanted roof almost. But I have bushes and stuff lined up against it, and really I should plant some trees in the back to hide this more, because again, this is more of my popsicle sticks. I don't intend for you to be back there looking at it, so, or if you are going to be back there looking at it, you're going to be way over there next to like where that water source and that bridge and stuff are, and you're not really going to see how dog shit it is. So just don't look at it too closely, and it looks all right. So put it somewhere where people won't be looking at it too closely. And then creative assets from the traders. I wish you could acquire these in some way in survival. I've said that 1,000 times. But they add nice, vibrant colors that you can't really get otherwise. And it also does that thing where you're breaking up the cube, because the trader assets don't have to follow the cube law, because they're made, like, they're not made with chiseling, they're rendered for the game as assets. So, like, look, these pieces of linen are stacked and off center, which you can't even stack pieces of linen, which bothers me. And then you have these different tools and stuff like a drop spindle or something here, that just kind of ties into this being a textile workspace. And then we stacked up the spindles of linen or flax fibers, whatever, or flax twine. That's the man. I could not find it. The twine, the rolls of twine sitting there, and then we have another creative asset over here at this fancy ass. I don't know. I feel like that's not a shirt. I feel like that's some kind of like gown or something with a hat. Kind of looks like what's this guy's Frollo, whatever his name is from fucking the evil dude from the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Can't remember his fucking name now. It's been so long. But the actual parchment in a storage vessel, a spinning wheel that has nothing going on. It's just stored out here. Just like another visual signal from the outside. Like, of course, we have this sign here that has the twine on it. But you can, even without that, if you were to like put your hand on the screen right now and cover that up, you can tell that this place obviously does something with clothing just from the other assets stacked on the front. So part of that visual storytelling, the narrative, the signposting, visual language, your brain fills in the gaps. You don't have to literally have a sign that says textile shop or cloth making facility if you have evidence of that being what this is scattered around. I do like the fucking sign, though. Not to toot my own horn too hard, break an arm jerking myself off, but really big fan of the sign. So again, honey, thank you for making the sign, the bottle sign for the brewery. That word is my bane. I swear to God, I can never pronounce it. For the distillery, there we go. Just choose that word. Thank you for making that sign, because it really inspired me to get really creative with these guys. So thank you, honey. I love you. The outside of this building is in tan daub, I believe, or maybe this is weathered brown or something. It's one of the browner daubs, not brown, but the lighter brown, and I have that chiseled in with the fire clay and tan bricks. Use your fire clay sparingly. We happen to just continue to find a bunch of it, just because of how we play the game, I will say. Not to like forloot any future videos or anything, but we have come across a lot of fire clay with the way we play the game. But you can use tan or the light. Is it not light? I don't think it's light brown. It's brown and tan. Brown and tan bricks work really well with this color daub as well. And again, you see I have some of the bricks exposed. More bricks exposed on top of the mud brick foundation. And then as you go up, it's a little bit more solid. The gable itself is a different color. I really like having a different colored gable from the walls underneath. I'm not sure architecturally and historically where that comes from. I have seen it a lot in like 1950s houses built around here, houses from the 50s and 60s, like post the World War II baby boom and everything. When everybody was getting a house, like everybody was a homeowner, these houses were going up, and they had different colored gables. Like they had brick facades on the side, and like everything was kind of different and weird from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But when they had A-frame gables, or even like 26-degree gables, low-ass fucking roofs, the wall of the gable itself would be a different material or a different color. Like if the building was brick, then it'd have like siding gable. If it was a siding wall, or siding on the wall, then the gable itself would be like a different color siding, or would be like trimmed out with all kinds of different ornate styles of siding or facade or whatever. Or they put a window there to break up the gable. So if you know more about that, like did we steal that from an older building style? Is it replicating something? I'm really not sure. I know a lot of colonial farmhouses around here from like the not 17, but 1800s. They do not have that same thing. They just use planks or siding or brick, or whatever it was they had, all the way up the whole thing. So I'm really not sure what causes it to be one way or the other. So if you know, let me know. I'm probably going to get off of here and Google it, or go to YouTube and get lost in the sauce. But I think that's enough for outside. Like I said, like with my buildings, it's a building. You can make it whatever shape you want. Just try to not make a cube. Break up the grid, break up the cube. Like this is technically a rectangle shoved into a rectangle, but it makes an L, and then the roof is all kinds of messy. So it doesn't really look like a box. It is just a box. All the things you build in this game are going to be a box, but you need to make it look like it's not a box. Think outside the blocks. But you come inside, giggity, I'm giving you permission. And wow, there's a lot going on in here. I really don't know where to focus on first, so I'm going to direct our attention to the ceiling, just to keep the conversation structural for a moment. You can see I have a big ass beam that would be a load bearing wall going across here, except there's no wall down, it's open space. So you have that big ass beam as if it is carried all the way through over top of those crates over there. That holds that side into this side, okay? And it also tightens this wall, and what would be, if that did not go off to the side there, it would tie this wall, that would be right here where I'm standing, into this exterior wall. But of course there's a cutout and that wall turns, so it looks like this beam goes across the roof right there, or behind the ceiling rather. And then you have smaller beams that are still big, giggity, up above with metal trussing braces, brackets, plating. I chiseled some metal. You don't have to use metal, but the cool thing about the metal is that if on the higher graphic setting, it looks metallic. Sometimes it's too shiny, in my opinion. But then you see those rivet holes. It looks like it's actually attached. Now you can do that in other ways, like using polished stone and then having like a piece of wood voxel there to make the little dot or what have you. So there's all kinds of ways you can do it cheaper. But me and my wife have a big ass factory. We are drowning in metal, and we can just pump the plates out to make the riveted blocks like fucking hotcakes. So it works out in our favor logistically, and it's the only reason we do it. You need to be economic. If you're in a hardcore survival situation and you're by yourself, you don't have any teamwork or teammates to help you with the work, and you still want to make something that looks metal, you don't have to use metal. Find some kind of stone or something a little less resource intensive. I mean, in the right context, fucking walnut and acacia can look metallic. Bauxite's a really good substitute for copper. Granite and conglomerate are good substitutes for like iron or steel. But just work with what you got, man. And if you really feel that bad about it, but you want it to be metal, cheat. Go into creative and put it in there. Fuck it. It's kind of annoying. You have to use a whole block of metal for just that. But, you know, the game is what the game is. Utilize the mechanics. Do what you got to do to make yourself have fun and make it look good and be happy. It's the whole point. But then you can see that not do we only have those smaller beams going across and connecting. You have that through beam right there as well, that rat walk. But then also there's actual 45-degree internal trusses going up with... I'm not really happy with the way I chiseled the birch. Maybe I should have done that differently, just made it a straight 45-degree angle, but it would have looked kind of boring. But now, I don't know. I feel like my slants, the angles, the part that are 45 degrees, need to be tied in better with where I have the beams going in. Like, it looks like there's a cutout in the ceiling where the beams go in, and not like the beams are tucked into it. And that's really about my only gripe or complaint or sense of disdain for my ceiling space here. Maybe I should have took these beams as well all the way across, but then we talk about this being claustrophobic. I felt like too many beams running through here would have been in the way. So I just kept it flat, and it's clean, and again, it gives you rest for the eyes as you're looking through this place. But yeah, let's go ahead and just start with the ground now. You can see some of the stuff that I really do want to show off, but I have the floor in kind of a warm set of colors, which helps with the lighting. I mean, do I have torches in here? No, I don't have torches because OSHA would fucking kill me if I had torches. So the lighting in here is that surgical white lighting. It's just these two lanterns, okay? Very bright. So to make it seem warmer, and it's like modern factories are going to obviously be bright lights and stuff like that. But like when industrialization was first going on, he was scaling up from artisanal crafts into air quotes mass production. The buildings were kind of dark and gloomy and messy and relied on natural lighting and stuff because there wasn't electricity yet. And some things were very flammable, so you couldn't have lanterns and torches and candles out all willy-nilly. So they would be darker. But we don't want to have drifters spawning in our game, so we can't go for that dark, gloomy look. So to make sure there's no enemy spawnage happening, I have the bright-ass lanterns. Okay, well, how do I make this look a little bit less surgical and a little bit more cozy? Use warmer colors, hence the oak is a little bit more warm than the birch or what have you, and the daub that I use, the tan or whatever it is also fairly warm. And then the floor is most of the space except for over there in the kitchen space where it looks like it's maybe concrete or some kind of stonework or just a flatter, smoother surface over there. Maybe it's fucking resin. I don't think they did resin poured floors back then, but it's a smooth dry, like it looks like it can get wet over there is what I'm getting at. You don't want your floorboards to get wet, but stone and stuff, you can get that wet, mop it up, it's fine. Over here where it's wooden though, we have planks that did the little crisscross hatch pattern with the different planks to give it some eye candy, some visual spice. Apologize for the cough again, still fighting whatever the hell's going on with me. Hence another video so soon. But I went with pine and Capic flooring. They are very warm and yellow colors, and so the white light hitting those, even in my lower graphical settings, I feel like this makes the room cozier. That's why I didn't go with just more oak as well, because if I had the oak floor and the oak pieces up there, and then also the tan daub, would have been too brown. Not warm, too brown. So having the yellows and orangish tints in there, I feel like sold that pretty well. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but maybe you see what I'm talking about. Let me know down in the comments. I love feedback. If you're encountering similar problems and solutions and stuff, I like engaging with that. But over here we have the production chain logic that I've kind of foreshadowed earlier. This building is built around the fact that this game understands you harvest flax, although it's happening inside your crafting grid, there's mods that pull this out of the crafting grid. Like you have a drop spindle, a spinning wheel, a loom, and all that stuff. So the game understands and is working towards, and mods have kind of fulfilled that niche, where flax has to be processed into yarn or twine or something, and then that gets turned into string and fiber, and then that becomes your ropes. And well, I guess this game doesn't really use it for rope, but you could use it for rope. All it is just a bunch of strings that become twine to string to twine, whatever the way that scales, and then ropes, and then it gets bigger and bigger. But you also use it to make fabric. Now the textile work in this game is also very limited. There's mods that change that, but the whole goal is to get to where you have square plates of linen, essentially, that you can utilize for, mainly it has been the windmill, because that's been the only form of power, and the sailboat wasn't here until recently. But you also need it for clothes and some forms of armor to keep you warm and keep you safe. So the game, the mechanical logic and the historical necessity of it is that's understood. That's inherent to it. Is the mechanics of it simplified? Yes, unfortunately it is. A lot of it is hand-waved because it happens inside your crafting grid. You just do it magically. But they are working away from that. Haven't got there yet, and I don't use mods. And I want this build that is built around this production chain that happens in the game, I want it to have a place. Because technically you could do all of what I'm about to show you in a dirt hut just with some crates around you, pulling it out and doing it in your inventory. And that would be a textile shop, bare bones for all intents and purposes. What I'm doing here is not necessary. Unless you want the build to feel realistic and verisimilitudinal. I don't know what the word for that is, but to have a sense of realism, to be grounded, to feel, I've used the term lived in, used, that is like it's been here, and to take the crafting grid that you're using and then to kind of throw it up out into the world with chiseling is a cool reason to make this type of build, to make this building a building inherently anyway, to tie it into the rest of your established settlement, your colony, your base, your town, our state, whatever you're doing to survive. To put that out there and ground it and showcase it occupies dead space. You can make the building bigger, more interesting. You can get lost in more details, and it really sells to the viewer like, oh, they do stuff here, because we have the crates where our flax fibers are kept. We harvest them, we bring them over here, and then they're stored. And then this right here is a spinning wheel. So now it looks like we process the fibers into the other in-game item, the flax twine. You can see I have them stored out here actually in the world, so you can see that transition happen. And then over here you can see that we've used sticks and stuff. You can make the sewing kits, which are necessary for maintaining your clothes. The sticks are up there to help craft those things. And then also the twine is actually literally stored in this crate, even though there's ground storage for display purposes. And again, this is more trench coating. There's no sides to it, but the sides of the crates kind of have some brackets and framing. So in my mind's eye, this is trench coated enough by having the door on the front of it, especially since there's a table on this side and a loom on this side. That is a cabinet. It's not 3 crates in a trench coat. It's a cabinet by putting 3 crates in a trench coat. I know it's contradictory, but that's how the logic works, which I've explained in the previous video. But I had so much fun chiseling this and making it look like, we're doing something here. And then it works its way towards further to the back of the building. You have a chair with the pedals chiseled. There's a piece of linen on the floor. and then I used white, not white, but the actual tan or light colored daub, whatever it is, weathered beige maybe, the lighter daub to and then back here is like fan cobblestone to make it look like it's strings, and then it comes to the actual. I'm not sure what that part of the loom is, but it has like the moving piece. I can't think of what it's called all of a sudden. I haven't watched Wanted in a minute. But that piece that moves back and forth or whatever that lets you actually, you know, not stitch, but wrap and fold and twist and tie the fibers together to make it into a coherent piece of linen. And then there's a piece of linen on the floor. And then there's some linen on the wall with our creative assets again showing stacked linen. And then here is in-game wall storage. It looks like we have cabinets or drawers built into the wall that have the 4 different current types of linen sheets. You have normal, square, diamond, and offset stitch, which I've chiseled an N, a square, a D, and an O into these labels because I really couldn't get an S for the square to work right there. To signify to me that these are what those are, and I know where to put which one, because there's no way to tell. Just like they all, with the display on the parchment crate, when you use the charcoal to like draw the linen on there, because there's linen in it, it all looks the same. I can't tell the difference, so I had to label it in some way. Now, when you look at it with the, let me go out of here. You can see already, like up in the top corner, it says 154 linen, normal stitches. And then over here it says 1 linen, square stitches, because you don't make a lot of those. So you can't tell by looking at it from there, but just the fact that it's so easily readable for me anyway, just by, like, from back here and as I approach, I don't have to spend too much time thinking about where I'm taking from or putting stuff in. Giggity. And then this is just kind of a kitchen space so we can store water and have access to a water source and sink and have some more tool storage, and nothing's up here yet except for the buckets, but maybe more stuff can go in these cabinets. Again, I created cabinets by trench coating, putting crates on the wall, trap doors on the front, and then chiseling some kind of side piece right there to hide the ends. And then right here is a table with a sieve, because you need the sieve for the actual paper making. I have a couple of them scattered around just to make it look like it's a bigger production than what it is. Creative mode trader assets with the, I think this is the building goods trader stuff. I like that. Looks like we have different, wallpapers and fabrics and stuff, and we're doing some kind of like, I don't know, some kind of experiment or discovery or designing something new. And then that is, I don't really know which way we'll go this way. We'll just walk around. Right here is just where we can dye the different rolls of cloth and then store them. And it's kind of set up like, these are individual pieces. I could have chiseled some kind of thing to go on the front to make this look more coherent. Another layer of trench coating to make it seem even more like one piece. But having this ebony frame on the edge and then it butting all the way up against the wall and it being the same all the way throughout. The framing of the crates, that bracketing, that metal material that like holds the boards of the planks together, the boards of the crates together, that kind of makes this look like it's a wall of drawers or cabinets or something with the symbols displayed on to let you know what color fabric it is. If I had made this bigger, if I had planned this out a bit more, this would be a wider space, and I probably would have made this look more ornate, a little bit closer to what you see over here with the linen squares. But I digress. And then over here is just a table, so that way I could have all the dies fit in here underneath and on top, and then I cut into the wall to have, this is like, I think this is the mordant, and then this is white dye. And then here's just an empty barrel. And again, another lantern in here to keep this space bright. I didn't want to have anything hanging from the ceiling because it'd be weird, but putting a table in the middle with a dummy and then the barrel and the lantern in the middle, I feel like it's an okay way to occupy the space. It is still navigable. The fact that you auto-climb the ladder just by being in the ladder block kind of bothers me, but, it's not, like, I can run around here like fucking Speedy Gonzalez. It's really not a problem. So, and then this window is kind of hidden, but, that's nice. A little bit of secret, some things obscured. Like, I have stuff in my house where stuff's sitting in front of the fucking window and blocks the window. That's real life. So, you don't have to have every window visible. These windows are a bit boring. Maybe I should put some drapes or something over top of them, but the shutters on the outside make them interesting enough, and there's so much other stuff going on in here that I didn't feel the need to decorate the inside of the windows. But then you come to, I guess, the final piece of this fantastic puzzle where the game calls it parchment, but historically speaking, parchment was made from animal hides, which I believe you can still do in the crafting. And there are animal hides and stuff over in the textile, or not the textile shop, but the leatherworking building that is next door. So technically, I can come over here and I can make literal parchment. But even when you make it with, even when you make rag paper or pulp paper, which is what this would be called, using the fibers and old rags and stuff, I'm implying that we're using the waste from this building to make paper. Like, not every piece of cloth can be utilized. Sometimes you stain things the wrong way. Sometimes the dye doesn't turn out. Maybe it's ripped. And so you use it to make paper. But it wouldn't be called parchment. It would be called rag paper, I'm pretty sure. But my logic was that you can use the waste from that, and we also have access to the actual parchments. And these things in-game actually use the flax fibers to make the pulp. Anyway, so all these things using the same resources, it just made sense. Instead of have a whole other paper building, just put the paper right here. Now, if paper was more useful than what it is in the game, because right now I think it's just for books and journals, and then like we use it for decoration. I think there's mods that make it more useful, like for crafting schematics of things you come across and sort of that nature. But from what I can tell, paper is not in heavy demand. Maybe you can sell it to somebody, and that might be a reason why you might want to scale up your paper production. But I did not see a reason to have a whole paper workshop or even a paper factory. But because my wife also uses it, I get confused with all the different steps for different production. I have actual signs and labels on the wall to help visualize what you're supposed to do. But it's really just because everything happens in the barrel. So the barrel's right here. And then I framed around the barrel an apparatus to make it look like you put pulp or something in here, and then it comes through this machine and gets sieved or something over top of this water, and like this is a pump that like you use your foot right here to pedal to move this thing or something, and then it basically drags this through slowly so that way the fiber pulp dries, and as it dries it is pulled out. And you can see I use a darker thing to make it look like it's wet, and then a lighter to make it look like it's finished, a lighter colored daub. Goes down this roller and drops into this bin, or this catch down here, and kind of folds on itself. And that's paper. It's a roll or a ream of paper. And then I just have a crate at the end to actually store the paper in. And then we have a crate over here where you actually store the fiber pulp. Because all you do is you make the fiber pulp, use the sieve, and then it becomes paper. So all of this is unnecessary. You just need the barrel and the sieve. But I made like a mechanical sieve thing on top of it to visualize the paper production. And the fact that I use the same color crates as what my floor block is, I thought that was pretty cool. The only thing I hate is that I could not get the crate planks to run the same direction as the pine planks. I could have went through and rotated all these, but like I've stated before, I'm too lazy to do that. So in my mind, that's good enough to facilitate that narrative. Again, little narratives are happening here, just to wrap it up here, because there's all kinds of lessons in this building. Everything is just every building is a case study of all my thought processes in some form. So there's always a lot to talk about. But a couple of you guys have talked about getting more into the specifics of it. Like, do you want me to do a whole video on just like the concept of thinking outside the blocks, breaking up the grid? Do you want me to just show only examples of that? Do you want me to show only examples of like turning the abstract crafting process into a in-world tangible simulation? Like, what kind of focuses do you want me to do on? Because I could do a whole video on just this paper machine. I could do a whole video on the paper machine, the spinning wheel, the loom, and the other machines that I have chiseled to make it look like we do stuff that technically only happens inside our prison wallet, where we keep the 9 squared crafting grid. So doing this, like, I guess just to wrap it up by having a little bit of a discussion on that, having the production chain outside visualized in the real world takes up dead space, makes it feel realistic, and also gives you something to do as a creator. And I think it's a neat thing to do. I really do think it's neat. I think it does a lot. I think it's powerful. I think it's good storytelling. Like, there's a little narrative here, again, to circle back to it, because that's the way I do things, apparently. Sorry. But this is the paper making story, right? Like, paper is made here. Oh, well, they do shit and paper gets made. Awesome. That's very easily seen. And then over here you can see, like, this is something is turned into twine, and this is turned into fabric, and like, it's just little narratives, little things are happening in every corner, and they all come together to tell the big story of this building. And the big story of this building is that this is a textile workshop. So I think that really wraps it up. I don't know how long this video it is. It's probably just as long as my other ones. No matter how hard I try to be quick, even with a smaller build. Like, this build's footprint is relatively small, but there's so much packed into it to talk about. So again, I iterate, if there's specific lessons that I keep touching on throughout the videos, but I'm not going into it enough. You're not getting enough examples. I'm not focusing on it at the level you need it to be focused on to learn all that you need to learn. Please tell me down in the comments, and I will put together something to where I can showcase this stuff for you. I'll hop into creative and grab all the different machines and line them up and talk about them individually, and then show their context in the building that they're in, or point you to the video where these things appear. So there's all kinds of ways I can go about satisfying your needs, guys. Giggity. Just let me know which avenue you want me to take. I can keep doing these whole case studies, because I do kind of want to show off all of the builds that I've done as builds, but every time I show off the build, there's lessons there that I want to explain. So if I need to separate it and do a showcase and then talk about lessons differently and abstractly, I could do that too. If you like where they're combined together, I can keep doing this. If you want me to do this type of stuff, but then also have more focused, conceptual, abstract videos, I can do that as well. Just let me know what you need. And we're wrapping up our Midwestern goodbye here, if you couldn't tell, as I slowly worked my way out of the building. Just feel free to pause at any point you wish to take a picture, or just, to have off to the side on your second monitor, you fancy motherfucker, so you can look at it while you're building. But other than that, if there's anything in the background you want me to see, anything I've touched on you want more detail on, let me know, and it'll give me inspiration, ideas, and motivation to make more content for you guys. A lot of y'all have said you like the ramble, but I have tried to keep it focused and on point. Hopefully you've learned some interesting things, maybe some background to history, maybe some architectural tips. Maybe you just learned a little bit more about decorating and chiseling. I think that's really it. Thank you all so much. I appreciate every single fucking one of you. You guys are absolutely fantastic. You guys are all very smart and creative and passionate and kind and community-oriented individuals. I think that's my biggest attraction to the vintage story community, is just how, I don't know, how group effort it is, how much teamwork is important to everybody, and how willing everyone is to share with each other their ideas and their problems and their solutions to those problems, and to hype everybody up with their builds and everything. You don't just see it on YouTube, you see it on TikTok, you see it on Reddit, you see it in the Discord. The vintage story community, whether you play the game or not, or you just observe it and watch it, maybe you're a Minecraft player and you look at vintage story stuff for inspiration. Welcome, and I'm glad you find stuff that's useful to you. That's fantastic. But everybody coming here to this shared space is just awesome. It's all really great, it's all creative, it's friendly, and I want to maintain that and keep that going. Like, you don't even have to play the game to have that kind of energy and bring it here. So the positivity and the creative feedback loop is probably my favorite part, and you guys make that my favorite part. So thank you. Until next time, I guess, stay alive, stay happy.